Congratulations, you have just purchased the finest scroll saw ever made, the RBI Hawk Ultra Precision Scroll Saw. RBI is recognized the world over as the premier leader and innovator in developing technology for the constant tension saw. RBI Hawk Precision Scroll Saws are often imitated, but never equaled. This presentation will instruct you how to set up your saw, how to determine necessary blade tension, define different cutting techniques and styles, and describe various accessories that will enhance your cutting performance and abilities. Your Hawk will arrive in 3 boxes. Box 1 will contain the saw and the owner's manual. Box 2 will contain the legs, the assembly hardware, and the glides. A third box will contain your accessories. First, remove the saw from its box. Make sure you lift the saw by its hold-down arm. Then remove the legs and the assembly hardware from the second box and organize them within easy reach. While removing all items from their cartons, be sure to inspect each one closely for shipping damage. If you feel your shipment may have been damaged, contact the local office of the transportation carrier. You will find their local number in the yellow pages under Shipping Carrier. You will need 3 tools to assemble your Hawk: a 7/16" wrench or ratchet, a 9/16" open-end wrench, and a pair of standard pliers. Now take each leg and install the 3/8 hex nut on the glides using the 9/16" wrench. Be sure to screw the hex nut all the way down until it's next to the rubber portion of the glide. Next, insert the glides through the hole in the bottom of each leg. Install another 3/8 hex nut on the glide to hold it in place and tighten the nut down securely. Now install one leg on each corner of the base using the 1/4" whiz nuts and the 7/16" wrench. Do not tighten completely. The carriage bolts should be able to move freely in the slots. We'll tighten these with a wrench when making final adjustments. Be sure the top of the leg is inside the base and the carriage bolt head is on the outside with the whiz nut to the inside of the base. With the legs installed, stand your new Hawk upright and tighten the carriage bolts on the legs securely with a 7/16" wrench or ratchet. Remember, your Hawk scroll saw is a precision stationary power tool. And for the best operation of your saw, be sure to get it on a solid level floor. Your Hawk will arrive with the blade already installed. We use this blade to test each Hawk before it leaves the factory. Proper tension on your blade is critical. If you have the wrong tension, you can create a number of problems. Because of the patented tensioning mechanism on your Hawk, these problems are virtually eliminated. Your patented Hawk tensioning system is designed around the cam system. Instead of turning a knob on the front or rear of the saw and plucking the blade like an inferior saw, we adjust the rear tension rod and flip the cam over. No guesswork, and it's right every time. As you view the Hawk from its left side and look at the tensioning assembly, notice that when you lift the cam lever from the rear of the saw toward the front, it will reach a point where tension begins and it wants to stop. You can change the position at which tension starts by turning the tension rod. The secret here is to match the position at which tension starts to the size of the blade. If you look at the cam as you would the hands on a clock face, when tension starts with the cam in the straight-up position, you can imagine that being 12 o'clock. As you add more tension by spinning the tension rod, the tension may begin at the 11 o'clock position. Basically, as the clock position lowers, say from 12 to 11, the more tension you will have on the blade, and the larger the blade, the more tension you will need. Affixed to the top of the base of your Hawk, we have given you a quick tip easy reference chart. This chart will give you the clock positions for the different sizes of blades. Use this as a guide. If you are an aggressive cutter, you may want to add a little more tension than the chart shows. Once you have tension starting at the correct clock position, pull the cam handle all the way toward the front of the saw. On the 216 Hawks, the rear cam lever is your only tensioning mechanism. The 220 and 226 Hawks have an added feature making inside and piercing cuts easier. On the front of the upper arm, you will find a front cam lever. This lever has two positions: a release position for releasing the blade from the upper blade chuck and a tension position for sawing. The release position is toward the front of the saw, and the sawing position is toward the rear of the saw. Always tension the rear cam with the front cam in the sawing or tension position. Once this is done, you can release tension on the blade by flipping the front cam forward, making release of the blade from the upper blade chuck easier when doing an inside cut or changing to the same size blade. Because of the double positive stop inside the patented upper blade chuck, which we'll show you in a moment, when you reinstall the blade in the upper chuck, tension will automatically go back to the exact same position when you flip the front cam lever back to the sawing position. This feature will make inside cuts much quicker, saving a great deal of time on projects with a large number of inside cuts. You'll find practicing in a soft wood like 3/4 inch pine easiest to learn with. If you refer to your quick tips chart, you'll see a number 5 wood blade is a great choice. When you look at the blade, you'll notice the teeth point in one direction. The cutting stroke on your hawk occurs when the arm moves downward, therefore the blade must be installed with the teeth pointing downward. The new patent-pending 2-step lower blade holder configuration for the Hawk Ultras is a revolutionary concept for scrolling. The forward position allows you to cut thinner materials and do fine cutting like fretwork up to 1 1/4 inches. It's also the perfect setting for cutting metals too. The rear position allows for a more aggressive cutting action. This makes it perfect for cutting thicker materials or stacked projects. These two positions give you far greater control of your cutting than any other scroll saw in the marketplace. The new lower blade holder for the Hawk Ultra scroll saws is T-shaped when you view it from the front. It has a pin inserted through the bottom and a thumb screw to clamp the blade. To hold the chuck while changing blades, there are 2 holes placed in the hold-down arm. Place the lower blade holder against the hold-down arm and the top portion over the hold-down arm. Put the pin of the lower blade holder into one of the holes in the hold-down arm. This will stop the blade from rotating when you turn the thumb screw. With the teeth pointing forward and down toward the chuck, insert the blade through the hole in the top of the lower blade holder so the bottom end of the blade is touching the bottom hole of the chuck. Make sure the blade is coming straight out of the chuck. Using the thumb screw, tighten the new blade in the chuck. Be careful not to over-tighten the chuck. In this case, more is not always better. When the blade is over-tightened, the blade will crimp and it will weaken at the point where the blade enters the chuck. Remove the blade holder from the hold-down arm and thread the blade up through the front of the saw. Be sure the teeth on the blade are facing down and are towards the front of the saw. As you slide the chuck under the lower arm in the slot, you can position the lower blade holder into one of the 2 slots in the lower arm. Remember, the front one is for thinner stock and the rear one is for thicker stock. You are now ready to attach the upper end of the blade into the upper blade chuck. Your Hawk Ultra 220 and 226 variable speed saws have a patented tool-free upper blade chuck. For demonstration purposes, we have here the upper blade chuck free from the saw so that you can better see how it works. On the right side, you see a thumb screw like the one in the holder. In the center of the chuck is a slot cut halfway through the metal. On the upper half of the blade chuck against the back edge of the slot is a roll pin. When you insert the blade, you will first push the blade all the way against the back of the slot, and then by pulling the upper arm down, the blade will stop against the roll pin. You then tighten the thumb screw which holds the blade in position. Now let us show you how to do this with the blade on the saw. Grab the upper part of the blade with the thumb and first finger of your left hand. Grab the thumb screw with the right hand. First push the blade all the way back into the slot in the chuck, and then with the right hand on the thumb screw, pull the upper arm down until you feel it stop against the roll pin. Tighten the thumb screw and you're all done. Now all you have to do is set the proper tension with the rear cam lever as we demonstrated earlier, and you're ready to cut. If you have a 220 or 226 variable speed hawk and have only released the blade with the front cam lever to do an inside cut, all you have to do is flip the front cam lever to the cutting position after you install the blade in the upper chuck. A good rule of thumb to remember is this: when using a smaller blade, lighten the tension. When using a larger blade, increase the tension slightly. Your Hawk 216 has a patented tool-free lower blade holder. It's made up of a barrel with a T-knob thumb screw. Around this is a bushing with a center hole. Match up the hole in the barrel with the hole in the bushing. Slide the blade with the teeth pointing toward the lower blade holder in through both holes until it stops, indicating the blade is against the bottom of the hole. Place this assembly in the slot in the side of the table to hold the barrel secure. Then, by turning the thumb screw, tighten the blade in the lower blade holder. Now you are ready to position the lower blade holder with the blade installed in the V-notch in the lower arm. For the 216 Hawk, you'll need the two tools provided to tighten the upper blade holder. You'll have an F-wrench and a T-handle Allen wrench. The F-wrench holds the upper blade chuck in a square position while you're tightening the blade in the upper chuck. First, make sure you release the tension on the blade by flipping the rear cam lever. Next, drop the F-wrench over the nose of the upper arm as you see demonstrated here. This will hold the nose square. Now insert the T-handle in the Allen screw on the right side of the upper blade chuck. With your left hand, place your index finger on top of the F-wrench. Then, with your left thumb and second finger, grasp the blade, and just as we did before, slide the blade all the way to the back of the slot. Then, with the index finger, pull the upper arm down until you feel it stop against the roll pin. This gives you the two positive stops to be sure the blade is positioned correctly. You can now tighten the Allen screw with the T-handle. Be sure not to over-tighten the Allen screw, as this will pinch the blade too tightly, weaken the metal, and cause the blade to break prematurely. Now, if you tension the blade, as discussed earlier, with the rear cam and flip it over, you're ready to cut. About every 20 hours of cutting time on your Hawk, you should do some routine maintenance to ensure the smoothest operation. Using a light machine oil, 3-in-1 brand oil is good. Put a few drops under the pivot wedge at the rear of the saw at each end of the tension rod. This will ensure a smooth glide on the wedge. For the 216 Hawk, put a drop of oil on each side of the bronze bushings at the pivot points on the arm. You will not need to do this on the 220 and 226 Hawks, as they have maintenance-free sealed ball bearings. Although we hand polish each Hawk table here at the factory, after about 200 hours of usage, you may want to apply a coat of wax to the table for protection. Apply Minwax clear wood wax or Johnson paste wax with light pressure in a circular motion. Polish with a clean, dry cloth. Be sure to remove all wax from the tabletop or it will coat your wood as you cut and make finishing difficult. Basically, there are only three kinds of cuts you can make: straight lines, sharp angles, and curves. Here is a simple practice exercise to teach you these three cuts and build your confidence. Take a block of wood. A piece of 3/4 inch softwood like pine is best to practice on because it's easy to cut. Use a number 5 wood blade. On the block of wood, draw a series of straight lines, sharp angles, and curves as you see here. Remember that a scroll saw blade only has teeth on one side. Also, these teeth, unlike most saw blades, have the teeth set or slanted to one side. Therefore, if you push a block of wood straight into the blade, the cut line will move off to the side about 3 to 5 degrees. To make a straight line cut, then, you would need to turn the wood 3 to 5 degrees to the left. Once you recognize this, it becomes second nature and easy to compensate for. Since the scroll saw blade only has teeth on the front side, to make a cut, you must push the wood into the blade. It's important that you not put excessive side pressure on the blade, as this causes the blade to break. When you want to turn your cut, you must turn the wood. Now for the practice exercise. Start by cutting into the straight lines to the end of the line. Then stop pushing and spin the wood around the blade and come straight back out the same line you just cut. The biggest problem here is continuing to push into the teeth of the blade while you're pivoting. This will create a loop at the pivot point. With a little practice, this also becomes second nature. Making sharp angles is very similar. Turn into the cut, stop pushing, spin the wood on the side of the blade, and push. Curves are a matter of learning to make smooth turns of the wood while keeping constant pressure on each side of the blade and on the wood as well. Again, practice makes perfect. An hour spent practicing these 3 cuts will give you a head start toward becoming a proficient scroller. The Hawk 216, 220, and 226 models have a variable speed controller. The speed is controlled by turning a knob on the right side of the saw next to the on-off switch. This controller lets you adjust the speed between 300 and 1,725 strokes per minute. As a rule, you'll cut wood at the faster speeds and cut materials like glass, ceramic tile, and metal at the slower speeds. You can, however, use the speed control to help you if you're a beginner. When you do intricate cuts, slow the speed to gain more control over your project. Notice, too, that when you turn on your Hawk, there's a short delay from the moment you turn on the switch until the arms actually start to move. This is called a soft start and is designed into the machine to give the motor longer life. In your owner's manual, you'll find more helpful tips, step-by-step instructions for projects, and some troubleshooting suggestions. Be sure and read all of your owner's manual. There are several examples of advanced scrolling techniques covered in more detail in your owner's manual. They include bevel cutting, stack cutting, doing piercing or inside cuts, and compound cutting. Remember, too, that you are not limited to cutting just wood. By using the proper blade and the proper speed on the variable speed Hawks, you can cut metal, glass, ceramic tile, paper, cloth, bone, shell, plastic, and many more items. If you're not sure about what you can cut, or you have a question about your Hawk, you can call our toll-free customer service hotline. We're always happy to help you in any way we can. RBI has been a company of woodworkers making quality tools for woodworkers since 1929. We are dedicated to building only the very best and backing that up with quality service for years to come. With your new RBI Hawk, you and your family will create the woodworking projects you've always dreamed of building. Enjoy your Hawk and happy scrolling.